Hey guys, welcome to another episode on my channel of Leaving Mormonism. It is a friend of mine had reached out over Facebook recently, and she was saying that she wanted to sort of study alongside with me. She's very much a true believing member of the church, and she's I'm sure she thinks she's trying to help me back onto the path, back to the iron rod, I love this friend. I mean, we're not super close, but I have a lot of respect for her, and she's an amazing person and kind and good. And basically the premise though of her reaching out was that she's concerned about me, and she's not just going to tell me I'm wrong. She wants to understand my concerns and study alongside with me and find out the things that I'm learning and have this, back and forth, which I thought, great, let's do it. So I gave her some stuff just a few things that I had concerns with. Well, like a few references to like tons of concerns actually, but I think letter from my wife and CES letter and a bunch of videos on YouTube, a couple, I mean, not a bunch, but what I'm saying is like it opens up a bunch of different concerns. And then she responded to me with like some of the stuff that she has read or felt inspired to share. So one of the things she sent me was this talk by Elder Corbridge called, it was like Stand Forever, or yeah, I think that's what it's called. It's to BYU, and I'm pretty sure it was this year, 2019. And so I listened to it this morning while I was doing dishes, and wow, talk about like shaming and gaslighting. That's basically all this talk was. He starts off by saying he started reading like he was basically confronted with and had to read this, how did he describe it? Like inflammatory or something derogatory information against the church, when really it's just like the history, right? Like the things that really happened. And he compared it to a swamp. And he said that he had to trudge through this swamp, and just because he was confronted with this and had to see what people were questioning him on or questioning the church on. And so he's doing his duties of verifying this information, or like going through the information, and he just couldn't say enough about like how terrible he felt and how awful it was to have to read this stuff, and how unfaith promoting, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like think about his audience. They're these young BYU students who are like in the prime of their education and super malleable and vulnerable to what they're being told. Although I think kids these days are getting less so, because here, I'm pulling into my garage, because just the internet and being able to have access to all of the information. So he's telling them basically like, you don't have to go and read this terrible stuff, because I read it for you, and it was, let me tell you, the experience was awful. I went into the swamp of humanity, and I just felt terrible reading it. And so the thing is, he doesn't even address any of the facts, or he doesn't like break down any of the things that were troubling. He just dismisses it all and says that it's the swamp. So yeah, it's like, why would anyone want to then go and read that stuff if you're like a young BYU student with this guy is supposedly like your leader, your spiritual leader. He was coming there as like, he's a area 70 or something, and he was coming there giving them this talk about standing forever. And so they're being told that if you dig into things that are basically non-conforming with what the church is currently teaching, you're going to feel terrible. And not because it's it means the church might not be true. He also addresses that. It's like not cognitive dissonance. It's like, it's the devil. So he's also naming the unpleasant feeling that you're going to get when your beliefs are challenged as Satan and Satan's influence, which again, like that's also, that mentality is what kept me from reading and just doing my own research, because we had this like circle around us, like the true believers, and everything else was of Satan. And it's just ridiculous. So the guilt and the shame that is being instilled on these young people, and the church as a whole, is so damaging. And there was something else I was going to say about, towards the end of his talk, he starts talking about, or maybe it's like 2/3, I don't remember exactly where, but he starts talking about the 4 basic questions, and like, you have to come back to, do you believe in God? Do you believe that Joseph Smith was a prophet? And do you believe in the Book of Mormon? And that, and then he gets all emotional, and he's like, and then he's saying, if you believe these things, then nothing else matters. Well, the problem is if all of those other details are true, like, I don't even know where to start to name all of them. It invalidates the fact that Joseph Smith was a prophet. It invalidates the first vision. It invalidates revelation to the prophets of God. It makes them not even prophets, because they've contradicted themselves so many times. So yes, those things do matter, because if those details pan out to be true, which, I mean, there are so many things that it's not like they might or might not be true. It's like there's records, okay? We have records, and there's just no avoiding it. So I don't know how you can do the mental gymnastics to try to pretend that any of it, the church history, is anything less than a fraud, a complete fraud. So what I'm saying is, I hate the argument that as long as you still believe in God and that Joseph was a prophet, those are the only important things, and nothing else matters, and that the Book of Mormon is true. Well, that just keeps people from looking at any of the facts and the history and all of the inconsistencies that are so easily provable. So, yeah, you should read that talk, because it's just so, it's just like the way that the church, it's like their format for how they handle anyone that questions the church. They basically make it seem like you're possessed of the devil now if you're questioning, and if you're finding things out that make the church seem like it's not true, that it's Satan is overtaking your heart, and now you are going to hell. So you're not, you're just finding out the truth. So don't worry about that.